Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Writers Drinking Whiskey. I'm your host and unpaid barkeep. I think unpaid intern at this point, William R. Hincy. And my guest today at the bar is Dana Ridenour. Dana, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm honored, privileged to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm honored to be here.
Well, awesome. So I'm going to butcher this because I always forget things people have done and they're all wonderful, but let me give my 2 cents and you can jump in from there. So you're award-winning author. It's the Lexi Montgomery FBI series, I think is the main one. And that includes like Behind the Mask, Beyond the Cabin, Below the Radar are the 3 I'm aware of. Anything I missed or anything else beyond just the writing credits you'd like to share?
Well, I was an FBI agent for 21 years. So, of course, my books are based on a female FBI agent working undercover. So most people, of course, want to know where the books came from. So that's where the books came from. So that's kind of a key piece, I guess.
Sure. Very cool. So my favorite part of the show is at the beginning.
Yay.
What are we drinking?
Well, while I was an FBI agent, I was stationed in the Virgin Islands for 7 years. So I was on St. Croix. So I am going to make a rum punch. I love rum punch. It's a great drink to have when you're having some friends over. I tell you what, I'll be honest, it can sneak up on you because you can't taste the alcohol in it, but it is really wonderful. And since I lived on St. Croix for 7 years, they made Cruisin' rum there. So this is Cruisin' rum.
Okay.
And it really doesn't give you a hangover. I know that sounds crazy, but it has something to do with the sugar content in it.
Sure.
I asked a chemist one time, how come I don't get a hangover when I do Cruisin' rum, but if I do another rum, I do. But it has something to do with the sugar content. So the drink has Cruisin' coconut rum. And as you can see, I like it a lot. I'm down to the bottom of that.
That's a happy bottle.
Aged light rum. And it has cranberry juice and pineapple juice. So it's a really easy drink to make. And you can mix it up in big pitchers if you're having a bunch of guests over. But for one, it's 4 ounces of cranberry juice, 4 ounces of pineapple juice, 2 ounces of the rum, coconut rum, and 2 ounces of the light rum. So 2, 2, 4, 4, really easy. So I tell you what, I use a shaker.
There you go.
Ice in there. And I already measured this out. This is 4 ounces of cranberry, 4 ounces of pineapple, and the good stuff. And you know, if you like it a little stronger, go a little stronger. If you like it less strong, but you won't. You'll want it. You'll want 2 ounces. So there's the coconut. This always is great for when we have people over. Everybody's always like, oh, I want the recipe for that. And it's so simple. It's again 2 and 2, 4 and 4. And you know, if you can get fancy with some of the other juices too. I like pineapple and cranberry, but you know, if you want the pineapple coconut, you know, by all means, go with whatever you want. So put it in there over the ice. Give it a good shake. I like a fancy glass because I'm a girl.
That's a nice looking glass. I like fancy glasses too.
I like the fancy glasses. Now I will say this is a lot of rum punch. So if I drink all of this rum punch, you'll get way more truth out of me than I probably should share on it. So this is the rum punch.
Cheers.
Drop this down just a little bit so you're not so high up in the air now. So when I sit down and drink this.
Very cool. I love it. And I'm actually going to do this a little easy today because you told me you were going to make that fantastic drink. So I decided versus me making a more elaborate drink, I was going to share one that is store ready, but is kind of a cool store and really, really awesome. Tastes great. So anyone that's watched the first episode of this show knows I'm very prone to an old fashioned. So this one is from a place. It's in the one I go to is in Claremont, California, which to put it geographically, Claremont's probably about 40 minutes east of LA.
Okay.
There's a place they call it the Inland Empire, the IE, we call it. So you head east from LA halfway-ish before you start hitting like the Palm Springs kind of famous resort area, probably a little closer to half. But Claremont, California is where I grabbed this at a place called, and I might butcher it because it's actually a German name, but it's Vom Foz,
Oh,
which apparently in German means from the cask.
okay.
It's a European market. They have a lot of like olive oil. You can get it, you can give them the container. They sell containers. You can get the olive oil, but they have all of these whiskeys from around the world,
Oh,
and you
nice.
can
That'd be fun
taste
to
them.
visit.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it is really awesome. You do the little tasting, and you get like 6 whatever whiskeys, I forget, 6 or so tastings, and you can grab the bottles. And they started bottling this one, and they even have their own cocktail cherries. I don't know if it's
Oh,
showing on there.
yeah.
Um, and I tried it one year, and it was actually really good. So I'm very prone to the ones I make, and I get very my wife would say snooty when we go to bars. With this one, holds up, and the place is really fantastic. And the Claremont is not, it's a European place, so Claremont's not the only location. So anyone out there, you may be somewhere else, it's worth a look up if you can find it. And I'll include the link to the website if anyone wants to do it. The one caveat I'll say every time there's an old fashioned, I'm going to put that cherry in there, and I'm just mixing it. I'll show it, but it's not anything fancy. But is always have your orange peel. My brother-in-law has been staying with us for a little bit here, and we started drinking old fashions together. And the other day I made one, and we were out of oranges. And so I make it, and I know like this is going to be the best one. That's kind of sad. And so we have an old fashioned or two. The next day he comes back home and he has a whole bag of oranges.
That was a sign.
Uh-huh. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's missing something without that, isn't it? He's like, yeah, I could tell it was missing something. So you always want that. So that's the final
Oh, that's
drink here.
yeah.
So cheers.
Cheers. Mm.
Awesome. So for our
You know,
audience,
mhm.
where geographically, or I guess it doesn't have to be geographically, maybe spiritually or metaphysically here, in the world are you?
Well, I'm outside of Beaufort, South Carolina. That's, of course, the home of the Pat Conroy Literary Center. Pat Conroy was an author from this area, and that's probably what Beaufort's the most known for. That and Paris Island. We have the Paris Island Marine Base there. So anybody that's been a Marine that's gone through basic training has probably passed through this town.
Oh, I've been to Beaufort a few times, and I wasn't aware of that part of it. I guess I haven't been a Marine, so that's
Yep, we have Paris Island where they do their basic training. We also have the Marine Air Base. So we have the jets. So at any given moment, the jets may fly over.
see them fly
You'll
over.
know if they do, believe me.
Sure. And
The
so
sound of freedom.
yeah. So for anyone going to Beaufort, what's the one thing they have to do, and what's the best place to get a drink?
Ooh, okay. Well, I would say the one thing you have to do, there's 2 things. You need to visit the waterfront because that's beautiful and that's where downtown is. And you just have to wander up and down, grab a cup of coffee, that sort of thing. But I think you have to visit the Pat Conroy Literary Center. Even if you're not a Pat Conroy fan, when you leave the Literary Center, you will be.
Oh, sure.
It's wonderful. And of course, I'm a docent there. So of course I'm Pat Conroy is my favorite author of all time. So I'm a little bit
Oh.
prejudiced, that.
Sure.
But
I have to
I
do
would
that next time I'm
say
there.
I would say the Pat Conroy Literary Center, but there's just so much history in this little town. I mean, just it's just so much to see. It really is. Everybody kind of looks at Beaufort and says, "Oh, it's such a tiny little place. What do you have to do there?" And there's just tons of stuff to do.
Sure. It's really idyllic. Like it is a beautiful, beautiful little town. So
It
I
is.
cannot believe how many times? I think I've been there 3 times now. I don't think I've ever done the literary center. So
Next time you're here, I'll give you a private tour.
awesome. That is perfect. I will take you up on that. So,
That's
and
what I
where's
would.
the spot for the drink? Because that's what I'm most concerned of. Unless
Okay.
you can get the drink at the literary center.
No, you can't get it there, but see, downtown, there's a really nice restaurant right on the water called Saltus, and they have a beautiful bar, and you can get anything at Saltus. that's a nice place. And then my favorite place is Old Bull Tavern, though. And it's not on the water. It's just like a block off, but they have the best bartenders. And
Really?
they will make it up. And I do think their drinks are fabulous. If I had to pick one spot to get the best drinks, I'd say Old Bull Tavern. Have to go to Old Bull Tavern. And the food's really good there too.
Awesome. Okay. I will have to remember that one too. I think I've been to the first one, the Saltos or
yeah. Everybody kind of goes to Saltos because it's kind of the high-end restaurant and it's pretty. It's got a beautiful view. But if you're looking for the best drink, Old Bull Tavern.
That is what we're looking for too.
That is it, Old Bull. Next time you're in town, we'll make a stop at Old Bull.
Okay, that sounds beautiful. So I did want to get into, because we can't have this conversation without talking a little bit about the undercoverness of your career. And I don't need any cases or any tops. So actually it's funny. My dad was an aerospace engineer. Okay. So he from basically he was in the Air Force. So I was an Air Force brat. I was born in Morgantown. He was going to West Virginia University, WVU. And then he graduated and we were in Omaha. There's Air Force Base there. And then he got stationed in El Segundo, which is where the airport is. LAX is for Los Angeles. And that's when we came out west here. And so he was top clearance most of the time. So I learned that I really couldn't talk with him about his job almost like at all, so I just learned that everything was back engineering alien spacecraft. Like that's what my dad did my entire youth, as far as I'm concerned. So I don't need any details that maybe you're not privy to say, but I was more interested in the personal aspects of it. So for instance, so you're undercover for a while, and then you're gonna go home, right? And I'm sure when you're undercover, there's certain habits you have to be in that's part of that life, right? And there's the old saying, you are your habits, right? And like any saying, right? There's some truth to it. It's not the whole truth, but there's some truth to it. So was it ever difficult on the coming home and needing to break those habits, or just the patterns that you had built while you were undercover?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I was very fortunate because I did deep cover, and the FBI doesn't do a lot of deep cover. And deep cover is when you're immersed 24/7 and you don't come out. So you're not going home at the end of the day. My first investigation lasted 4 years where I was undercover. Wow. And the second one was almost back to back and it lasted 3 years. So you're talking about a 7-year span of my life that I spent undercover. And yes, I mean, I was undercover with, the extremists and anarchists and stuff. So that became my personality. And when the case was over at the end, I mean, I'm a little embarrassed, but I didn't come out of the character. I mean, I was back in the FBI office, been transferred, given my badge, my gun back, and here I am. But I still had that mentality. I mean, I still acted like an anarchist. My supervisor would tell me what to do. And, I was like, after you, I'm not doing that. I could have probably been fired for some of the stuff that I said, but it took a while before I kind of realized that, wait a minute, I'm still I'm in the wrong mentality here. I need to start acting like an agent again. I'm no longer an anarchist. I'm no longer undercover. But, when you spend that long, I always say that every case, you lose a little bit of yourself. You may gain a few things, but you lose a little bit of yourself. And when you're doing deep cover and you're not able to be with your family and you're not able to be with your friends and have daily conversations, and the only people you're exposed to are targets. Right. There's just no way it doesn't affect your personality. I mean, and if I said it didn't, I'd be lying, because it absolutely did.
Right. Absolutely. Wow. I mean, thank you for that. That is such a profound sacrifice. Right.
And I didn't even realize what was happening is what was so bad, because the changes happen so little, little at a time. And suddenly, all of a sudden you're like, wait, did I just say that? Did I just do that? And,
right. Right. Well, it's like, if you're in the military, right, you could go to Iraq or some of these places, but you still have, unless you're right engaged in the battle, you still have time to contact your family. Like there's still like some like ties to who you are, like, and who you were growing up, right? That version of you that's not in the war.
Right.
But to do that 24/7 for 4 years, and then again, back to back, basically 3 years, that's pretty amazing. I assume that's before you were married?
Well, yes. The
Okay.
first time when I was undercover, the 4 years, I was completely by myself. I just had a contact agent. Then there was the break, and I started dating my now husband. And he's an agent, and
Okay.
they wanted me to come back to do the next case. And, it was a new relationship, but I really felt like it was something real. And it was so,
Sure.
I've been undercover for so long. I hadn't had any real connections and any real relationships. And I just felt so good about this relationship. I didn't want to give it up. So I kind of told him, look, I'm not interested in doing this case because I've got this relationship going on. And they said, well, will you come out and consult with this? Well, when I got out there, it called for 2 full-time undercovers. And my boyfriend was an undercover agent as well. So I went back to the Virgin Islands because that's where I was stationed at the time. And I said, hey, hon, how would you feel about going undercover, like becoming an extremist, being a vegan, like living in a commune? I thought he was going to tell me to pound sand because, he'd done all these like bank robberies and fugitives, and his undercover work had been kind of gritty. And I'm asking him to go make a total change. And to my surprise, he just laughed and says, hey, it sounds like a great time. Sounds like an adventure. Let's do it. We talked the FBI into allowing us, a romantically involved couple, to play a romantically involved couple and work together 24/7. And there were naysayers, of course. There were people that would be like, you know what, this is going to be a disaster. You guys are going to kill each other. But it was unbelievable. It worked so well. We melded just perfectly. We worked together so well. He was my backup. I was his backup. And after that, we decided, well, heck, marriage would be a cakewalk after this. So now
marriage is a cakewalk after veganism.
Oh yeah, I mean, after the pressure that we went through all those years,
I'm sure
it was, it really was. But people kind of still laugh and say, how in the world do you all spend so much time together? I would kill my husband if I spent that much time together. And it's just like, well, that's kind of all we knew.
Sure.
So we do spend a lot of time together as a married couple, which a lot of people think is strange, but to us, it's just, that's the way it goes.
Right. That is awesome. That had to work into one of the novels, because that's better than Romeo and Juliet here. I mean, that's an amazing story.
Oh, it worked into the third novel, which is kind of a funny story too, because, I had the first book out and then the second book. And then one day Bill came to me and he says, how come I never made any of the books? And, he was kind of joking, but I was like, well, honey, you're in the third book. And so Lexi gets a male partner in the third book, and that character loosely based on Bill. And we had a good time writing it because, of course, he's looking over my shoulder at what I'm writing. And it kind of became funny because I struggled a little bit writing the character, and he knew before I did. And he finally sat me down and said, look, you know why you're having trouble with that character? He says, you think I'm going to read that character and think it's me. And he goes, just stop and write the character, write what needs to be written. He goes, and then when you get up on stage, tell everybody all of the stuff that's good about the character is based on Bill, and anything bad is all fiction. It's just strictly.
It's all fiction. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
the snoring, that is fiction.
That's all fiction.
Awesome.
Yeah,
so was there ever so when you had said there's part of you lose and there's part of you gain. So was there something you learned undercover about yourself?
I think I figured out I was a lot more mentally tough than I realized, because especially when I was under for 4 years all by myself, that's a lonely experience. You look at this on television and movies and it looks all sexy and the undercover's doing this and that. When the truth is, it's very lonely. You're by yourself. Your parent, you have no contact with your family and friends. They can't call you. They don't have your phone number. They don't have your email because everything is, an undercover. You have one contact agent, and that's your sole tether to reality that may or may not be somebody that you mesh well with. I was fortunate because my contact agents were all fantastic and I did get along really well with them. But yeah, and so I think there was a time period, I guess, when I was all by myself where my birthday rolled around and I was feeling sorry for myself because nobody called me. And then I realized nobody's got my number. Nobody can call me. I didn't hear from anybody. But my undercover birthday rolled around and all the targets showed up at the door and they're like, yay, we're here to party. And I'm like, these are my real friends.
Right.
So I think just having the mental fortitude to just stick with it, that surprised me a little bit. It surprised me, one, how lonely I would be, because I don't mind being by myself. But when you're by yourself that much, it does start to get to you. But then to kind of get through that and come out the other side. And yeah, so I think that a little bit was that. And I did learn to play the guitar. So,
Very good. Yeah, you get something out of it. What did it
right.
teach you about how to deal with loneliness?
Well, that's the thing. In the undercover school, they really don't. The school, to work undercover with the FBI, you have to go through the undercover school, and it's 2 weeks, and that doesn't sound like very long, but it's two continuous weeks. It's no time off. It's all day, all night. You're sleeping like an hour and a half, 2 hours a night max, and because they want to get you totally exhausted when they're putting you in the scenarios. But you do scenario after scenario or scenario, but they really don't talk a lot about the loneliness. And so I think that's why it was such a surprise when I got out there and I was like, wow, here I am sitting in this apartment by myself, and what am I going to do with myself now? You can only work so many hours a day. So, and you lie to everybody. I mean, that's the thing about it.
I mean, it's almost like you're alone the whole time because you don't get to be yourself. So
you don't. And everybody you meet, even people that are not targets, you're lying to them because you can't tell them the truth. So I go to, you go to the hairdresser and you give them the same story, which is called your legend. That's your background. You give them the same legend, and your dog walker, nobody knows that you're an FBI agent. So, I mean, technically you can date if like some hot guy would have said, hey, let's go on a date. Could have. But can you imagine at the end of like 4 years, I said, oh yeah, this is a great relationship. By the way, my name's not really so-and-so and I'm an FBI agent. I mean, how's that for starting a relationship? That, it just wasn't worth it to even try that.
Right. Like it turns out I'm not a vegan, that's shattered.
I'm on the street to get a Whataburger. In and out,
awesome.
animal style.
I know, very good. That's how I eat them too. Anyone, you
style.
come to LA and you get your In and Out, or you come west. I think they're out to Denver even now. But yeah, you get the double and you get it animal style. It'll be worth your time.
I love LA. I actually love California. I was in Northern California and Southern California. Love California. Love it all.
Yeah. Oh, it's a beautiful, beautiful place. It can be crazy and overpopulated, but it's beautiful.
Traffic sucks, but other than the traffic, oh my gosh, I love the people, and I loved the hiking, and I was crazy. I even loved Hollywood. I'd love to go down there and just hang out, watch the crazy people. It was fun.
Oh, that's funny. My favorite Hollywood story is I was dating. So before my wife, I had a longtime girlfriend who was an actress. And so I was in Hollywood pretty constantly. Like I'd spend kind of part of the week there. I was a single dad at the time, and that's when my kids were going back and forth. So when my kids were with me, I was in the high desert, Palmdale, with my kids. And then when they'd go back to their mom, then I would go, spend time with my girlfriend in Hollywood. And one day I get there, and I was working like a crazy swing shift at the time. So I get there. And I probably went out with some friends even after, because it was 2 a.m. I just remember like pulling up, finding a place to parallel park, 2 a.m. So I get there, I parallel park, and then I look out, and like there's no one on the streets, because even, this is not, well, I mean, a couple of blocks from Hollywood Boulevard, but this is kind of where the apartments and stuff are. So it's not like where the bars and things are.
Okay.
So I look out, and there has to be this 8-foot tall person walking down the road, right? Like, and it's he or she, I don't know how they wanted to be pronounced, but it's a guy who's probably 7 foot tall. Like, this is a really tall, and I'm 6'1", 6'2" ish. This guy is like, he would tower over me. and he's wearing really high heels, and he's dressed up as like a scantily clad demon,
Oh my
and
goodness.
he's just waltzing down this residential block. I said, I'm watching and I'm like, it's Hollywood, this is probably normal, but also this might be where I would see a demon. Like maybe I'm gonna wait this out. I'm gonna let him walk down because I don't know what's exactly happening here. That's my quintessential Hollywood stories, like residential block, 2 a.m. and then there's just someone waltzing down, like full on lingerie, but also like demoned out, and I'm here we are,
That's Hollywood.
It's a lot of fun. Lots of fun things. Lots of fun things to do. I always tell everyone though, Hollywood Walk of Fame a little overrated. Like you end up walking and had a Pet Boys and
Yeah.
there's a lot of fun, tons of fun stuff to do.
Yeah, and great entertainment, great theater.
For sure.
You can see A-list actors in a small theater that you just paid, $25-$30 for a ticket. It's like, holy
For
cow,
sure.
it's fantastic.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do miss that. I miss the theater. Beaufort doesn't have a lot of theater, so I do miss that.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And then there's North Hollywood that has a ton of theater too. So there's the bigger theaters like Pantages and Hollywood and Omniscient, a little further out. Not much further out, but a little outside of Hollywood. But then North Hollywood has tons of local theater, which is really awesome because it's not like the A-list people, but it's like that you'll recognize a lot of them from things you've watched. And it's a lot of just up and comers that are just going to like work on the craft and just love acting, right? A lot of them just love to be, love to do it, right? That's how you get into it in the first place. But you get a lot of great, little independent, and you get to be one of like 100 people in the audience and just be on top of it, little black box theater experience, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things. I love that. I could do that every single night of the week. I love it.
Sure. Awesome. So let's get into like past the undercover here. So what's something that really pisses you off? It can be pet peeve, it can be bigger, like you can determine the size and extent of it, but what's something that gets your goat?
Inconsiderate people, just rude people. I just hate rude people. There's no reason. And I don't know if it's the internet or what, but it seems like our culture has lost all sense of manners. It's like people just are so rude sometimes. And I love Beaufort and I love the South because you kind of think you're away from that, but no, every once in a while you're going to run into some of them there too. But I just hate rude people. It's like life is short. Right. There's no reason to be nasty to somebody. If you're having a bad day or somebody cuts you off in traffic, let it go.
Right.
Be just a crazy person and chase them down and scream and holler and I don't know. But yeah, probably rude people. I hate anybody that's rude, especially if you're being rude to somebody for no reason or like an older person or just that's what gets my goat. I have trouble keeping my mouth shut.
Sure. Well, I have I always think that too. Like I always try to impress upon my kids that manners and like being polite and just chivalry, all those different things we call it, it helps lubricate society. Like when you're rude, you're grinding things, but like you hold the door for someone, like you just do, and those little things actually add up. Because you don't know like who that person is that you're being rude to. Like I was waiting to pick my son up last week, maybe 2 weeks ago now, and I had gotten there fairly early, but I don't like to park right in the front because it gets crazy busy, and it was double or triple parking and stuff. So I'll get there early and I'll just hang out a little bit further back and wait for him to come up. And there was enough spot to parallel park between me because I'm there before, and then the other car pulled up and didn't like back in or anything, just pulled up, and there's enough spot to parallel park, between me and that car. So I'm like, okay, whatever, I'll just leave it. And so the person starts parallel parking, and it's like a newer car. I could see the little camera on, like, on the bumper where the camera is. I see the camera, and they're backing up, and I'm like, well, they have to see me. They have a camera there, and I'm like, and they're a tiny car, it's like a Fiat or something. Backing out, I'm like, okay, they'll be fine. I'm waiting, and they keep getting closer. And I'm like, should I honk? Are they not watching their camera? And they bump into me, and it's very lightly, not the biggest deal in the world, but they bump into me and then pull forward and get there. And I'm just like there's that part of you that's just like, you had so much room and now you bumped into me. And I'm just like I'm like, should I make a big deal out of this? I'm sure it's nothing, but I'm also a little annoyed that you've like bumped into me now. And I'm like, this could be one of my son's little friends, like parents, like, I mean, middle school. I guess I shouldn't say little anymore, but like, it could be someone's parent, or it could be someone's parent that he ends up being friends with down the line. And like, nothing happened. It's cool, whatever. I just kind of waved at her through the window. I'm like, you're fine. I knew it didn't do any damage anyways, but there's just more the annoyance of it.
Right.
But it's that, like, you don't know those connections. Like, it used to be the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon or something, right? Like, who knows, like, when you're going to be connected to this person.
I know. I felt terrible about this. I was going into the library in downtown. I was kind of in a hurry at one point, and this lady just walked in front of me. Like, I almost hit her because she just wasn't paying attention. She was on her phone, and she walked in front of me, and I had to slam it on. And before I thought of it, I kind of threw my hands up, like, you know what the.
Yeah.
And then I thought, I felt kind of bad about it,
Sure.
So I went and parked and didn't think of it. She followed me in the library and apologized. And then I felt this big. I felt like just the most awful person. I was like, and I was like, oh, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. But, my first reaction was,
Right.
And yeah. And then she was a really nice lady, and she came and she apologized. And then she was one of the volunteers for the group that I was working for. And I was like, oh, this is even worse. Now I'm like,
Right.
I made a point of like being nice to her the rest of the day, just because I felt so bad, because I sort of yelled at her in the car, without thinking. But
right.
yeah, sure. So sometimes, everybody has those moments, but I try to stop myself before I go into full on like rage.
Well, and that's the power of an apology, right? Like, you diffuse the situation, but you can also, like, you take the high ground almost, right? Yes. Like, oh shit, I did that. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Like, I remember I was driving one time and someone cut me off really bad. And like, it was one of those, like, oh, I'm like, I want to, like, I've never had that bad of road rage. I've never ran anyone down or anything, but my friends and stuff have joked that even since like teenagehood, I've driven like a middle-aged man, and that's pretty true. But it happened, and I was immediately mad. And then the person just did the palm, right? Just hand up, and I look, and I'm like, "You're good, buddy." We're
yeah. I know, but drivers, and I've found that drivers in California they're not near as rude as like the East Coast drivers. If you're driving around DC or New York area and stuff, those people will not let you into traffic. I guess when I was living in LA, it was like, we're all in the same boat. Nobody's going anywhere. So it's like, yeah, let me go ahead. None of us are going anywhere. We're all sitting on the 405, just sitting here. So come on, get in front of me.
Right. I know. I do think that's 90% of people, because you're just like, oh, whatever, get in. All right, we're fine.
Go ahead. We're not
moving on. There'd be like 1 person out of 10 that doesn't want to let you in. And you're like, okay, I'm going in right behind you. Like, life's moving.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I like to have something kind of popular culture related here. So one of the interesting questions I've thought about, because I mostly watch sports. I don't watch tons of TV, but when I do, I tend to watch it with the kids. We have the 11-year-old, we have a 16-year-old daughter, and then 2 adult daughters now. And they like to watch Marvel and all these things. And one of the trends I've noticed is that they portray America, or sometimes even humans, as the bad guys. Like, there's Avatar, and it's like humans are the bad guys. And then there's all these American movies, not counting Top Gun, but almost everyone we watch is like, Americans are awful, don't trust them. What do you think that trend, like, what does it say about us? What does it say about culture in general? Like, that we dislike ourselves so much. Like,
No, I've kind of wondered that myself, especially in the last, I don't know, 6 years or so. It does seem like we've gone down the tubes a little bit, you know?
yeah,
And maybe it goes back to the fact that, you know, we're not taking care of one another anymore. And if you and I don't agree on politics or whatever it is, we can't be friends. It's like, that's just idiotic. You know, I have friends that, you know, on one side of politics and friends on the other. And, you know, I can be friends with both, but,
yeah,
you know, but then I have other friends that are just like, no, if you don't agree with me, then get off my boat, because, you know,
right.
we can't be friends. I don't know if that has something to do with it. Like, we have such a division in our country, and
Sure.
maybe that is starting to seep over. I mean, I know other countries are probably looking at us going, you know, what the heck's going on with the United States?
Right. Well,
You
yeah.
know,
If you just watched the popular cinema and things that come out, you would think that we just hate ourselves.
yeah. Well, I really think if you watch the news, sometimes we hate
Sure.
ourselves, you know?
Right. Right.
And then,
Or
you
you
know,
just go on social media for sure. You would get this.
yeah. It's just
Um,
the gun violence and stuff. It's just so sad. I mean, you can't send your
it
kids
is.
to school anymore without worrying, you know,
Right.
am I gonna get something to say there's a school shooter? You know, I don't know how parents do it. I really don't. I'd be a nervous wreck. I'd run around with my kid in Kevlar or something.
Oh, right.
But you know, our culture in general, I think, is just kind of circling the drain. I think we need to pick ourselves back up off, you know, and dust ourselves
Mhm.
off and find a little
Sure.
bit of civility again, maybe. I don't know.
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't know what the
Yeah.
answer is.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I mean, we have to have the answers on the show. Like, we'll
Mhm.
figure it out here, me and you, and then we'll just share
Yeah, especially after a couple of these, we'll really figure it out.
it. We will indeed. But you know,
Yeah.
it's funny though. I do think, to a degree, it goes back to little things like manners, right? Like
Mhm.
you mentioned civility just now. It's like sometimes just treat people like with respect, whether you agree with them or not. And we seem
Mhm.
to have lost that. It's a lot of just zero sum games. You agree with me or not, and
Yeah.
you're the enemy. And it's like,
I sometimes think people will say things too on social media that they would never say to your face. And, you
for
know,
sure.
then it really gets out of control, you know, the name calling and the craziness. I don't know. I'd like to blame everything on the internet.
Right. Well, what, that's a funny, because I think about that quite a bit, like especially with social media, because it really hit as a thing around the time my daughters were kind of preteen teenagers. Um, and I almost feel like it was unleashed upon us, because
Mhm.
like I had no idea like what was going to happen with that, because like I'm like pager generation, right? I remember like high school, not everyone had a pager. Some people did, to where my wife is she's a nurse, and she's going for a doctorate and stuff. And at this different time, she has this pager because she's managing a clinic or whatever. And I used to call her a 1990s drug dealer because that was like the thing.
Yeah.
But like we had pagers and things. It was never, you would call people, but it never was like, oh, at all times I'm connected to everyone, including
Right.
people I've never known, including people I don't like, and do you think that social media, kind of this ubiquitousness of cell phones and internet connectivity, computer in your pocket at all times, do you think that's been a net positive, or has that been a net negative? I'm sure there's good and bad, but where do you land on how good or how bad it's been?
Well, you know, I think, having a computer in your pocket for the most part is a great thing. I mean, because you can look up anything you need. You know, we no longer have to call to find the movie channels and sit there and listen to every
Mhm.
single movie until it gets to the one you want to hear to get the plot. I mean,
I
there's
forgot
so
about
great.
that. I remember that though. That's funny.
I spent more time on the movie on the phone, you know, waiting to get the movie times. But there's so many things that are so easy. But I do think that in a way, people expect you to be on 24/7. You know, and I remember growing up, my mother would tell me I'd want to call my one of my friends, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, it's after 9 p.m. You do not pick up that phone. It's rude to call somebody after 9." And so,
Mhm.
you know, oh, okay, well, it's rude to call somebody after 9.
Sure.
Or, you know, I'd try to call somebody, and she's like, do you realize it is 6 o'clock? They were getting ready for dinner. Don't you call anybody in the middle of dinner.
Right.
Or if our phone rang, we might have answered it, but we did not take the call. It's like, oh, excuse me, we're in the middle of dinner. Can I call you back? That's all gone. I mean, you go to a restaurant and you see entire families sitting at a table, everybody on their phone. And it's like, you're at a nice restaurant sharing a meal, but yet nobody's having a single conversation with each other. They're all texting.
Right.
To me, that is so sad. I mean, I think the art of communication we're going to see a big decrease because of the generations coming up behind us. They just, it's all text. They don't even like to even call people on the cell phone. It's all text. And I noticed that in the career, the young agents coming in, especially the ones going into the undercover program, they didn't have the art of communication. And to be an effective undercover agent, you have to talk to people. That's what you get in everything. If you can't talk to people, you can't be an effective undercover agent. So I'm thinking to myself, what's going to happen in the future? I mean,
right. Well, the people they have to go undercover with aren't going to have any communication skills either. So
that's
maybe
true.
the art of communication, right? The art of texting and emoji sending or whatever it might be.
I guess so. So I don't know. I think I think there's really good things about it. I unfortunately think there's so many negatives, and having been an FBI agent for so long and seeing the predators online and I did a lot of the child predatory crimes and stuff like that, with the sex trafficking and the kiddie porn and things like that, which like I said, I hand it to people like you who have children, because if I had children, I'd keep them in a box. I would never let them out of
Sure.
I guess I've seen too much in the world.
I know. Well, it's I actually need to look this up. It might be the second time on the show I'm quoting it, but I think it was John Lynn that said, when you have kids, you give hostages to the world. And it's I've felt that, because you do, like, you have to let them go out, and they want to go. I used to homeschool my son until this year. Well, he started at like a private's kind of a fancy school, but like a pay school. It wasn't private in the sense that it's you have to meet certain criterias or something. It was just like a Montessori school. Like, he had gone there for a few years, and then I was homeschooling him for about the last 2.5, 3 years. And he decided he wanted to go back to school. And I was like, well, I don't want to deny him, the chance. That's what he wants. You have to send him. But there is a bit of where you're just like, what do you do? Like, you are afraid of like the gun violence, and just luckily I have actually seen a really marked change between him and the older girls. My oldest daughter, Rhiannon's 12 years older than him. In fact, it was really sad with her first day of her senior year of high school. So her last year of high school, I drop her off at school, and then I go and I drop William off, my son off, because we're really creative with names. So if my son has the same name as me, same name as my grandpa and my dad and his dad and so forth. We're dropping William off at his first day of kindergarten. And I'm like, what have I done? Like, I'm just restarting this again. Like, she's like graduating, and now I'm starting all the way through the school system. But they have a life, right? You have to kind of, there's good and bad, and you have to kind of let them experience it, but you fear the tragic.
Right.
And it hangs over you. So sometimes I'll be like, oh, this kid did this. And like, sometimes I'm like, I'm going to go to school. I want to see these kids, like what they're going to do or what their parents are going to do. And it's a silly thought, but it's that protectiveness. It's like, oh no, I don't want to like this be the mama bear over them. Like, no, and you can't do it at all times, so it's scary.
Yeah, it is. And the internet doesn't help.
It doesn't. But that's where I had started with the market change between those two, is that my older daughters, and it was like I that term actually strikes me, is that social media to a degree was unleashed upon us. They were really into it. He got a phone. All the kids we've gotten phones when they've started going to school to where maybe they'll walk home and things, so that then they have a phone and they can kind of call us and makes us feel a little better. He barely partakes. His friends will text him, he'll ignore it. You know,
Really?
there's buddies, like he'll hang out with them, and the other girls were, oh, we have to do it right now. And if I don't, I'm very much like, oh, a text message to me is like an email. It's like, I'll get back to you when I can. Like, I'm not stopping what I'm doing right now.
Right.
And he's kind of that way versus the other girls that was like, no, we have to get to it right now. And that's kind of the more common, like a text message you respond to right now. You never call anyone, you text them, but you respond right away as soon as you get that text. Well, that's probably an interesting spot to transition here. So what's something that haunts you?
Ooh, well, I was on the FBI evidence response team, and our team responded to 9/11. And of course, I went through all that, with recovery. We recovered evidence, we recovered the bodies, we recovered stuff like that. And that's one thing. But all these years later, 20 some years later now, we're living now with people dying from the effects. I had an 8-man team, and 2 of the 8 people on our team have passed away just in the last like 6 months. And they one was younger than me, one was older than me. And so, that haunts me, because I'm thinking I was exposed to all that stuff, all the chemicals and all the toxins. And, there's kind of not a day that goes by that I think, what kind of effect did it have on me? I know I had a little bit of effect on my lungs, and you try not to think like that, but, when you have 2 friends, 2 out of 8 have gone, and directly related to the effects from 9/11. And the FBI's lost a lot of people, but NYPD, and it's unbelievable how many people they've lost to cancer related to that. So yeah, that's something that really, really haunts me. And just now, I guess in the last couple of years, I've gone to my doctor and said, you know what, the government kind of low bids this to doctors and keeping track of it. And I don't want to low bid my health. So you tell me what I need on any kind of scans and any kind of thing like that. And let's stay on it, because, life's short anyway. And so I don't want it to be any shorter, because the FBI low bidded my doctor.
Sure. Yeah, no, I hear you. My dad, I mentioned earlier, he was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer about 10 years ago now.
Oh, wow.
And so it'd been remarkable. They didn't think it was going to last 18 months. And I think it was 2013. I might even be a little short, might have been a tad earlier than that. And he's still around, still kicking. He's done really great. My wife works at a really wonderful cancer hospital called City of Hope. So when he got diagnosed, we had gotten him over there, and he's gotten amazing care. But it is something that, like, I mean, I commend you. I mean, younger people don't realize what a trauma 9/11 was just to the nation in general. I mean, you were on the front lines of it in the investigation and things, but what an event that was. I think it's been lost with the kids that didn't live through it.
Yeah, definitely.
But even so, it's so my dad has colon cancer, so my wife's always been terrified because he didn't find out until it was already stage 4.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, what are you doing? You need to go get checked. And it's always better just go get it checked. But you find out early. Had they found my dad's early, he'd probably be cured by now. But he had waited. He's definitely that generation that my family's Midwest, West Virginia. He was born and raised right outside of Pittsburgh. So it's you don't go complain. You don't praise yourself. You don't go complain. You go do your thing, and take care of your family, and keep quiet and like it. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad to hear you're doing that, because hopefully it doesn't happen, but if it does, hopefully you catch it early. And
but that's it's always there, and even every year when the anniversary rolls around, it's kind of a somber time, just there's images that, you know, I'll always see, I think. And
Right. I'm
that's
sure.
definitely that haunts me.
Right. Yeah. 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 I believe it. You know what haunts me?
What's that?
Ghosts. You know?
Gosh.
Yeah. Like 2 Christmases ago, you know, suddenly there are these ghosts around. I think they're waiting for me to learn a lesson, but still hasn't kicked in.
Yeah.
So I couldn't deal with the emotional weight of that, so I had to throw Ghost out. So
I like that. Yeah.
I
There you go.
apologize for my my childishness
I
here.
like ghosts.
Awesome. So and you mentioned this. I'm really excited to hear about this. What's a trip that changed your life?
You know, when my husband and I started traveling quite a bit, especially right after we retired, and we took some really great trips, but I have to say it has to be Italy. I love Italy. I had gone to Italy when I was probably in college, I guess, with my parents. I made a trip to Italy, and I fell in love with it then. But you know, you really don't appreciate things truly when you're that age. So when I went back with Bill, we actually had gone on our honeymoon, and we did the grand tour of Italy. So we were over there for like 3 weeks, and we saw the whole country, and it was just phenomenal. But I love Italy. I love the culture. I love the food. I love the coffee, the cappuccinos, architecture, the history. It's such a remarkable country. And if you've never been, then you kind of have to do the big cities. You have to do Florence and Rome and see the Colosseum and stuff. But if you go back, you won't want to do the big cities again. You'll want to go to Tuscany and the small areas and just get lost in the countryside. And it's like the Italians talk to you. They'll, you know, even if you don't speak the same language, they'll figure out a way. They'll figure it all away.
Sure.
You go into a little bitty place, you don't speak any Italian, don't speak any English, but you know, you'll leave there with what you need.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'll figure it out.
Oh, very
So,
good.
yeah, it's just a great country. It's remarkable. It's one of the places where I think, you know, there's not many places outside the United States that I'd want to live, but I could live in Italy, especially the countryside. I could live in some little Tuscan village someplace and walk to the corner and get my meats and cheese every day. I could do that.
Well, there you go. Yeah, that'd be beautiful. Yeah. My so I'm how much am I? My dad's half Italian, so I'm a quarter Italian.
Okay.
And my I think it's my grandfather. Let's see, it wouldn't be my grandfather, it'd be my great grandfather. They had come over from Sicily.
Okay.
So one day, me and my wife who had been talking prior to the pandemic. We were really considering we want to go somewhere and live for a year, and we'll work, we'll do everything, and we'll rent out our house just a year. And the kids are kind of old enough. The 2 younger ones were old enough that it would be an adventure. They could go to school. But it was kind of before they'd really hit high school and stuff, to where it starts getting harder because they want to finish up, you know, and things like that. And we had considered Italy for a moment. We had settled on New Zealand, and then the pandemic hit, so none of this happened.
Oh, New Zealand would be cool too. I've never been there, but that's on my bucket list. I'd love to
yeah.
go to New Zealand.
Yeah, we were very, very excited that we did land on it. But my wife found out in the course of that because I am not too far removed, if I could get like my grandfather's birth certificate or my great grandfather's birth certificate, I can be an Italian citizen. So she's
Really?
like, oh yeah, it's like the way the citizenship works, we can actually go. You got to go get this information. And she was, I think, asking my mom and like Facebooking my family. And she probably communicates with my family more than I do. And it's shameful. I love all of you, but I'm not great on the Facebook thing. I don't do this show is technically social media, but it doesn't feel like social media to me. It's we're having fun, like having a conversation. I do that because it's fun, and we just post it on there and let the fates do with it what they will. But yeah, so we were looking into it. She's like, oh, you can do it. You can be an Italian citizen. I was like, oh, that'd be really awesome to go live off. Like, there's so many beautiful lakes and just such a beautiful country, and the food is just wonderful.
Country. All of it too, from northern, it's just also different too, but yeah, and I loved visiting the cities, but if I go back again, I would avoid the cities completely and just stay in the countryside, because
Yeah.
There's nothing more beautiful, I think, than than the Italian countrysides.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Well, we had gone and we spent some time in Venice, which is, excuse me, which is beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
but completely overrun by tourists at this point.
Exactly. I was about to say, oh my heavens.
Yeah.
It wasn't one of our favorite places just because it was so touristy. And then,
Right.
you dream about taking the gondola trip. Well, we're on our gondola and our gondola driver's on his cell phone behind us, and he's talking the whole time on his cell phone. And we're looking back like, well, so much for a romantic little gondola trip on our honeymoon,
Uh-huh.
Talk about
Yeah,
rude. There
and
you
that's
go.
sure. And that was the sad part, is it's so overrun with tourism, you don't feel like you actually experience Italy. It's a strip mall with a bunch of gondolas and canals and things.
And pickpockets. Lots of pickpockets in Venice. Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's sad.
It is. There is a little island, I'm gonna blank on the name. I'll see if I can remember it and add it to the show notes here. But they call it the garden. I think it's the garden, not the farm, the Garden of Venice. And you take the little boat over, and it's where a bunch of the farms and stuff are, and there's barely anyone there.
Oh, now that would be nice.
Yeah, and we loved that. We did a day over there, and there was a little hotel. Guy spoke no English. Got a beer with him anyway. He's very friendly, like you mentioned, like very friendly. They'll like kind of figure out what you want. So I have a beer, and then we'd gone, and they called it a wild beach. And so you can bring the boats and things into it, and we hung out there with the kids right on the Mediterranean. So the sea was super warm, and that was a really beautiful, just fun day.
Yeah.
But all the time Venice, yeah, you're just being a tourist. There's so little else to do now. There's which is very sad. I hope they turn it around at some point in their life. But
I do too, because it wasn't a pleasurable experience. And of course the day we were there, it was pouring rain, which didn't make it any better. So you're hopping around in the rain with all the other tourists.
Right.
Yeah, that wasn't a great day, just because exactly the same reason, just way too many people, way too many. Yeah.
Right.
I don't like people. I mean, I don't like big crowds. So I would rather find some little, tucked away place and in the day and actually get a little bit of the taste of the real culture.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's the stuff, right? It's I don't understand, like, I can go to a strip mall 5 minutes from here, right? I can find a strip mall everywhere in America. Why do I want to go anywhere else?
Yeah,
have a strip mall there. We had gone to Hawaii and we went to Honolulu, and I'm like, okay, so there's ocean here, there's ocean in LA, it's strip mall here, there's strip mall there. Like, this has been fun. And the next time we stayed at the Big Island and went to a volcano, went to a bunch of the little, like, every beach is beautiful, but we go to a bunch of the black sand beaches, everything else. And like, now I love Hawaii. I'm like, oh, we should find a vacation house, but only on the Big Island where the volcano may wash us away in magma, but that's okay.
A good price.
Exactly. But it's beautiful and it's fun, and you feel like you've been somewhere.
Yeah, I agree completely. I don't, keep the big cities, just give me the little quiet areas, like, with Hawaii, like Hawaii or Maui or something like that, but yeah, I don't want anything to do with Oahu. Traffic. I mean, talk about traffic. That place has some horrible traffic problems too.
They do, yeah. I mean, it's a tiny island, and you throw everyone on it, and try to get around. You're getting traffic. Right? I know, LA feels like a tiny island half the time. Thanks so much for joining us today. That'll be the end of part 1. But if you're enjoying my conversation with Dana as much as I am, then come back for part 2. It'll be out in 2 weeks. Or if you're on my website, it's there. You can go to the website. It's email. It's free, except for the email. But you can go there and find the whole unabridged show. If not, come back in 2 weeks, and where she reads from her really captivating novel, Beyond the Cabin. I said that weird. She's going to read from Beyond the Cabin. Join us. Cheers, everybody.